With nearly 1,700 active NFL players, there's going to be a few that get way more hype than they actually deserve. In this video, I'm going to be discussing who I think is the most overrated player on every NFL team. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a like and subscribe if you're new. Also, YouTube added this new hype feature that allows videos from smaller channels to get recommended more, so hitting that button would be greatly appreciated. Thank you, and let's get started. Arizona Cardinals, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. There's plenty of people that were disappointed in Marv's rookie season. There's plenty more people that think he's going to break out in his sophomore season. And while I don't think Marv is a bad receiver, I'm not buying into the hype. I think the Cardinals are going to be one of the most run-heavy teams in the league, with Kyler Murray, James Conner, and Trey Benson. He'll probably have good efficiency numbers, but Marv just one of the targets to be very productive. Atlanta Falcons, tight end Kyle Pitts. Okay, I know most people are out on Kyle Pitts, but I don't even think they realize just how awful he really is. Yeah, he put up 602 yards and 4 touchdowns, which seems solid, but looking deeper, it's really not. He had a career-low 1.33 yards per route run, had a 7.8% drop rate, which was 8th worst among tight ends, and converted on just 25% of his contested catch looks, which was 3rd worst. And on top of all that, he is one of, if not the worst blocking tight ends in the NFL. I'm sorry, but Kyle Pitts is straight up ass, and please do not draft this guy in fantasy. Baltimore Ravens, cornerback Jair Alexander. Okay, look, Alexander's a really good corner, but first of all, Jordan Addison is his daddy, and second of all, Alexander cannot stay healthy to save his life. He played just 7 games in each of the past 2 seasons. Everyone says the Ravens have the best secondary in the NFL now, but for one, the Broncos and Texans exist, and for two, it's hard to be the best secondary when your top outside corner missed 2/3 of the season. I like the addition of Alexander to this Ravens team, but the hype on him has to slow down. Buffalo Bills, wide receiver Josh Palmer. 3 years, $36 million for wide receiver 3 that's going to get lost on the depth chart. And the worst part is Bills fans are buying the hype. You guys have a great team, but Palmer doesn't help with that. He had just 584 yards and 1 touchdown in 2024, along with a 9.3% drop rate and the 13th lowest yards after catch per reception. I also don't know why I keep seeing comments saying Palmer had elite separation metrics, even though he was 14th worst among wide receivers in average separation. Palmer is just not a good receiver, and I wouldn't expect too much out of him. Carolina Panthers, cornerback J.C. Horn. Horn is a good cornerback, but he has never played a full season in his career, and in 2024 he wasn't all that amazing. He did have 9 pass breakups, but also allowed 6 touchdowns and had a 98.3 passer rating when targeted. He also had 12 penalties, the second most among corners. Again, Horn is a good player, but I don't think he's established himself as a top 10 corner just yet. Chicago Bears, tight end Colston Loveland. Was Loveland a great tight end prospect? For sure, but he was not worth the 10th overall pick, was definitely not worth taking over Tyler Warren, and is absolutely not better than Cole Kmet right now. I understand why Loveland is getting so much hype, but I'm sorry, I just don't see him having great production. In the future, maybe, but Kmet is not going to let him have the tight end 1 job this early. Cincinnati Bengals, safety Geno Stone. Anybody that thinks Stone is still a good safety because he had 7 interceptions in 2023 needs to get their mind out of the past. Stone is not a good player, he just isn't. He can't tackle to save his life, and is the worst run defending starting safety in the league. He's a total liability there. He doesn't get targeted all that much because all he does is sit back and play deep, but when he does get targeted, it usually works out for the offense. The interception numbers look pretty, but Stone is not someone you want starting. Cleveland Browns, cornerback Greg Newsome. Once upon a time, Newsome was one of the better CB2s in the league, but after 2024, he definitely is not in that conversation anymore. He missed nearly a 4th of his tackles, allowed the 7th most yards per reception among corners, and also allowed the 12th highest passer rating when targeted. The stats speak for themselves. Newsome was just not good in 2024. Dallas Cowboys, wide receiver George Pickens. Pickens can and has made some of the most ridiculous catches you'll ever see, but I'm sorry, he's not a top 10 or even top 15 receiver. He has a lot of highlight reel plays, but his consistency is all over the place. In 2024, Pickens had a 13.2% drop rate and converted on just 37% of his contested catch looks, which was 2nd worst out of all receivers with at least 25 contested catch opportunities. Pickens is definitely a good receiver and a great wide receiver 2 next to CeeDee Lamb, but he is still overrated. Denver Broncos, running back RJ Harvey. If Harvey went to almost any other team but the Broncos, I would be seriously worried if he could perform or not, because let's face it, the Broncos drafted a 4th round prospect with their 2nd round pick. Harvey's explosive and did produce in college, but he's smaller with inconsistent vision. I'm just not fully confident that his college game will translate to the NFL. Harvey did land in a great situation, has every opportunity to prove me wrong, but right now, I think he's getting a little too much hype. Detroit Lions, quarterback Jared Goff. Look, I think Goff is a really good quarterback, but pretty much every list I've seen has Goff in the top 10 among QBs, and I just can't get there. I think he's just outside the top 10. Goff did put up some great numbers, but we also have to remember that he had a top 3 O-line and Ben Johnson calling the plays. Goff also had the same amount of turnover-worthy plays as he did big-time throws, and we can't forget the meltdown he had in the playoffs. Like I said, I think Goff is really good, but he's not top 10. Green Bay Packers, linebacker Quay Walker. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be, but I still think Walker gets overrated by some Packer fans. But the guy is just not good. He only has 1 interception in 3 seasons, allowed a 96.6 passer rating when targeted in 2024, and also had a 48.8 PFF coverage grade, the lowest of his career. Walker hasn't been developing, and even though he's still a starter, I consider the former first rounder a miss. Houston Texans, offensive tackle Cam Robinson. I don't care if you think Cam Robinson is the worst NFL player of all time, you are still overrating him. He is awful. He, along with Sam Darnold, were the sole reason the Vikings lost their last 2 games of the 2024 season. He led the entire NFL in pressures allowed, and in the final 2 games, allowed a grand total of 21 pressures on just 101 pass blocking snaps. Texans fans, I'm warning you, you're in for a rough season at that left tackle position. Indianapolis Colts, quarterback Daniel Jones. Giving Daniel Jones a starting job is an extremely questionable decision to me. Obviously, Anthony Richardson has had his low moments, but he also has had his highs, and he is still young with a ton of upside. Daniel Jones, on the other hand, has never been good outside of one fluky 2022 season. He doesn't have half the upside AR has, but he has all the downside. Naming him the starter for the entire season is just baffling to me. Jacksonville Jaguars, edge rusher Trayvon Walker. Because he was a former first overall pick and his sack numbers haven't been that bad, many people like to try and make themselves believe Trayvon Walker's a good player, but he's just not. He had just a 10% pressure rate in 2024, which is the bare minimum to be considered a solid starting edge rusher. He missed 1/5 of his tackles, and he just hasn't been the player the Jaguars are hoping to get when they spent the first overall pick on him. He's an okay number 2 piece, but he's not all that good. Kansas City Chiefs, running back Kareem Hunt. Believe it or not, I've seen people say that they think Hunt is better than Isaiah Pacheco, which is just not true. Yeah, Hunt had a great first few games with the Chiefs, but he also finished the 2024 season with a mere 3.6 yards per carry. Out of his 13 games played, he had 9 with under 4 yards a pop. He's an RB2 at this stage of his career and definitely does not deserve to get compared to Pacheco. Las Vegas Raiders, quarterback Geno Smith. Okay, I'll admit this is a bit of a cop-out answer because there really aren't any overrated players on the Raiders, but I have seen some QB rankings that have Geno at or approaching the top 10, and I'm not quite there. I think Geno is a really solid quarterback, but he does have his limitations, and I do think some people overrate him a bit. Los Angeles Chargers, wide receiver Keenan Allen. I know Chargers fans are happy to see a franchise legend return, but I don't think Allen is going to make as much of an impact as people think. He showed clear signs of regression in 2024. He had his lowest yardage total since 2016, his lowest yards per reception since 2020, the lowest yards per route run of his career, and the highest drop rate of his career. The Chargers have Ladd McConkey and Trey Harris as the number 1 and number 2, and I don't think they're ready to give up on Quentin Johnson just yet. I just wouldn't expect too much from Allen in 2025. Los Angeles Rams, defensive tackle Braden Fisk. Fisk definitely impressed in his rookie season, but people acting like he's already a star D tackle need to calm down a little bit. Fisk was definitely good as a pass rusher, but he was a total liability in run defense and also missed 23% of his tackles. Again, Fisk was good as a rookie, but I want to see him become more balanced before I talk about him as a star player. Miami Dolphins, tight end Darren Waller. I've seen some hype for Darren Waller as a replacement for Jonnu Smith, but I'm honestly not expecting anything from him. The guy hasn't played a game since 2023, hasn't played a full season since 2020, and was also just not that good in his final couple of years. He also probably is focused more on his rap career than football, so just don't expect him to have a huge impact in this offense. Minnesota Vikings, cornerback Jeff Okudah. It seems like the Vikings are planning to start Okudah as their CB3, and I know he has done some stuff in training camp that has built up some hype, but on the field, Okudah hasn't been anything but awful. The former 3rd overall pick has never allowed under 15 yards per reception, has never allowed less than a 92 passer rating when targeted, has always been heavily penalized, and has just never been a good corner. If there's anyone that can fix him, it's Brian Flores, but I need to see it first. New England Patriots, wide receiver Stephon Diggs. I think most people agree that Diggs definitely isn't what he used to be, you know, being 31 years old and coming off a torn ACL. tell, but anyone expecting a 1,000-yard season or anything like that is probably going to be disappointed. I still think Diggs is a good wide receiver, but I don't think he's a true number one anymore. In fact, one of my hot takes for the season is that Kyle Williams, the Patriots' third-round pick this year, emerges as the number one guy. Diggs will definitely play his role, and he's absolutely better than the garbage they had last year, but don't expect too much. New Orleans Saints, quarterback Spencer Rattler. I don't know what's worse, the fact that the Saints are actually starting Spencer Rattler, or the fact that some Saints fans actually believe in him. Look, I understand that Rattler was dealing with a bad supporting cast, but he was awful last year. You know who also dealt with a bad supporting cast but actually played well? Tyler Shuck. Say what you want about his age or injury history, but he is way more pro-ready than Rattler is. Don't be surprised at all if Shuck is the starter by midseason or even earlier. New York Giants, edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau. The Giants drafted Abdul Carter for a reason. Thibbs just hasn't been worth the 5th overall pick, and I'm tired of people pretending that he was just because of his sack numbers. He had just a 10.6% pressure rate in 2024, and he missed 28% of his tackles, which is just horrendous. Let's face it, Kayvon's time with the Giants is probably ending soon. New York Jets, quarterback Justin Fields. There may not be another quarterback in the league that has more committed fans than Justin Fields. Everywhere he goes, no matter how he plays, people still claim he's going to be good. I even see people that still believe the Bears should have kept him. And now with the Jets, the hype is back on for him, even though he's still the same quarterback he's always been. A great rushing threat, but a bad passer with an inability to properly go through progressions. Look, there's a reason the Steelers switched to Russ even if Fields' raw stats were bad and they were winning games. Maybe this will finally be the year people realize Fields isn't a good quarterback. Philadelphia Eagles, quarterback Jalen Hurts. Two things can be true. Jalen Hurts is both a great quarterback and probably the most overrated player in the entire NFL. I'm perfectly fine with him in top 10 conversations, but when I constantly see him ranked 7th, 6th, sometimes even 5th or higher, that's where I draw the line. I understand he just won a Super Bowl, but are we seriously going to criticize Patrick Mahomes for putting up mediocre stats and then turn around and praise Jalen Hurts even though he's coming off a season where he threw for under 3,000 yards and under 20 touchdowns? He only threw 5 picks, sure, but he had more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws. Not to mention he is arguably the best supporting cast in the entire NFL. Again, I don't hate Hurts. I really think he is a great quarterback, but I think people need to realize that while he is great, his situation also does a lot of heavy lifting. Pittsburgh Steelers, wide receiver DK Metcalf. The Steelers got rid of one overrated wide receiver and brought in another and paid him too. Metcalf is currently making more than AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Terry McLaurin. Metcalf is a physical freak, and that gets people excited, but he doesn't always tap into his traits, and that's super frustrating. He honestly should be what people like to say he is, but he just isn't. You would think someone that looks like this would be able to dominate one-on-one matchups, but Metcalf is just a 33.3% contested catch win rate over the past 2 seasons. We'll see what he can do in Pittsburgh, but I don't know if he'll live up to his contract. San Francisco 49ers, linebacker Nick Martin. This might have been the most egregious reach in the entire 2025 draft. Martin was a 6th to 7th round prospect drafted in the 3rd, and even worse, people are now hyping up Martin as the starter because of one good game against the Chargers in the preseason. Not only was he bad in college, he was also horrible in the 49ers' other 2 preseason games. I'm not buying the Nick Martin hype. I'll believe it when I see it. Seattle Seahawks, wide receiver Cooper Kupp. We'll always remember that spectacular 2021 season, but at this stage in his career, Kupp just isn't a great wide receiver anymore. He has some serious health concerns. He's missed 18 total games over the past 3 seasons, and his production has been declining ever since that 2021 year. I know Seahawks fans are excited about Kupp, but considering his age, injury concerns, and noticeable regression, I don't think Kupp is going to live up to expectations. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, edge rusher Hassan Reddick. The Hassan Reddick signing was exciting. The Bucs have been looking for a proper edge rusher, but I'd temper my expectations a bit. Reddick is 31 years old, coming off the worst season of his career. Just a 10.7% pressure rate and 1 sack. And this was after an extended holdout for a contract he did not live up to. Maybe he can bounce back, but I wouldn't expect a ton from Reddick. Tennessee Titans, wide receiver Van Jefferson. Okay, I'll be honest, there's no real overrated players on the Titans, but ever since Van Jefferson had that 100-yard game against the Vikings' 3rd stringers, he's been listed as a starter on the depth chart, and I think we all know he is far from starting caliber. I had to pick someone, so here you go. Washington Commanders, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore was traded to Washington midseason and immediately got owned by A.J. Brown, and everyone else for that matter. He was not good for this team, especially in the playoffs where he allowed 172 yards in just 3 games. He also hasn't played a full season since 2021. At this point, Lattimore is known for being A.J. Brown's son rather than a good cornerback. He's currently the Commanders' CB1, and that's something I'd be worried about. But that's it. Those are my picks for the most overrated player on every NFL team. Or do you agree? Or do you disagree? Comment below. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a like and subscribe if you're new, hit that hype button, and that's it for me. See ya.